So of course this is coming out very late, just about an hour before the first game. So we're going to have to kind of speed run things here a bit, but you have a rematch in the Eastern Final between the Toronto Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes. Last year we see Montreal go out and get a big road win, 39-10 I do believe, and go on and win the Grey Cup. That was huge for a team that hadn't done that since 2010, and now they're getting to host this game. And from that game that we saw last year onward, feels like a lot of things just did not go Toronto's way. Some of it definitely self-inflicted. Other things, again, just free agency, some things you really can't control. But they've managed to miraculously make it back to the Eastern Final yet again, and are going to have to be that team like we saw Montreal last year, go out there and get a road win. And this time, of course, it's going to be in Montreal. Toronto is coming off of a big win over Ottawa last week, where they put up 58 points in that game. Things looked really good for them there to end out that game too, as they had 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 pick sixes, and the offense was electric in that one. Chad Kelly ended up having 18 completions for over 350 passing yards, I think 4 touchdowns. You had guys like Polk and Daniels have long touchdowns as well, and this offense can show what it can do. We've seen that obviously last week, and then we saw the defense being able to go out there and make plays. Hyderlahu is a guy that we saw even against Montreal not that long ago, end up having, like 8 field goals in that game. So Toronto certainly is a pieces where you think they can go out there and make those plays and win, because this offense, when it's at its best, is probably the best in the CFL, which I don't really feel like should be contentious. But in a year where things kind of got moved around, where some teams didn't perform the way you were expecting to, I feel like everybody's kind of confused about who might be the best. Now, as for Montreal, they have looked really good, but there's a couple things that I feel like are kind of holding them back at the moment. They have just 2 wins over their past 7 games, I believe, but we got to remember they have not had to play for a lot in a minute. They had that game against Winnipeg that they lost at the last second, and in general are not probably what their record said over that final 6 or 7 game stretch. And I do think that one thing is very concerning for Montreal going into this one is the fact that they've got some injuries, especially to the receiving core, that could play a huge factor in how this thing pans out here. You've got Philpott that will be out of this game. Austin Mack is a game-time decision. And I know Mack may not be that 2023 version, especially if he's coming back from an injury. But if he is able to play a big role for this team, it would just go a long way in helping them get back to the Grey Cup, even though they kind of face an uphill battle in that way, as a lot of those receiving threats could be, again, dealing with some things. Then you kind of look at the thing that could be the difference maker in this game, is the fact that Montreal had the most big yard plays in the air this year, while also allowing the fewest. Montreal's defense really did step up, and they actually had the fewest offensive points allowed this year. And for a team like Toronto that we talked about last week, having a situation where their secondary especially allowed the most 30-yard completions in the league, this could be that deciding factor where we say, oh, this is how Montreal won the game. So for this one, it kind of gets complicated, because I don't think that there is as big of a gap as we've seen from Toronto and Montreal this year. And I think that what we saw last year, where Montreal kind of seemed far off from Toronto, just isn't the case. I think that Toronto certainly could go out there and win it. And I think I'm going to be going out here and picking Montreal, just because their defense probably will be able to do a good job. And we've seen a couple games earlier in this season where Toronto ended up losing to the Owls, or even one of those that they won, I think was against Caleb Evans. So Cody Fajardo and this team kind of getting an extra week to rest and heal up. I feel pretty good about them going out there and getting the win. But with Dinwiddie and co, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the victory. And I think, again, kind of neck and neck. On to speed run number 2, you have the Western Final, where the Saskatchewan Roughriders travel over to Winnipeg to play their provincial rivals. Saskatchewan played BC last week and picked up a nice win. And they're just kind of a team that we've talked about before. Not everybody would really want to play. They've got 2 good running backs. They've got a receiving core that actually I think has been underrated for the past couple of years, mainly because they've had inconsistent quarterback play, quarterback injuries, or just haven't had their guy. And add on all that, they have Trevor Harris, and I know people kind of might feel a wide range of feelings about how they view Trevor Harris, but I do think he is a good quarterback, and he's going to be the best option they've seen in quite a bit. Clearly, they're back to the Western Final for the first time since 2021, and I see a lot of potential here. They have a defense, ended up having, 3 interceptions last week, can force turnovers and make life difficult, but I think on the flip side of that, you play a Winnipeg team that started out the year 0-4 and has since then gone 11-3. They won the division, and these two are kind of neck and neck at the end of the year. A lot of their stats kind of reflect that as well, and I see a Winnipeg defense that surely could go out there and make life difficult for the Saskatchewan offense. They had the fewest passing yards against, I think, the lowest completion percentage, and the QBs had the lowest rating when they went out and played Winnipeg, a group that's going to be getting some members back on defense too in this one, and certainly a pivotal battle through the air, but I think this one could be a lower scoring game, certainly less scoring or lower scoring than what we see in the Montreal-Toronto game Last week, that Ottawa-Toronto game felt like it was going to be a lock to be high scoring. This one feels like it should be locked to be a little bit low scoring. And then, of course, you have the fact that Zach Collaros has had an up and down year. And if he didn't have that really big game against Edmonton, his numbers wouldn't look all that great. Winnipeg, I think, had the fewest passing touchdowns in the league with just 18. So averaging a passing touchdown per game for your offense is not great. Brady Oliveira is going to be going out there and going to have to probably be a workhorse if they're not able to pass the ball. Good news is Brady Oliveira can go out there and do it. Last year in the Grey Cup, he had a pretty good game. The team just kind of folded towards the last bit of that game, which is unfortunate because it's kind of something that you've heard before for Winnipeg, just not being able to get the job done in those important moments. Maybe we could see a situation where they fold in the Western Final instead of the Grey Cup. But I think what it boils down to right now is the fact that Saskatchewan might not be as good as people think they are. They've had a relatively favorable schedule as of late. Meanwhile, the Blue Bombers are 11-3 over the past 14 games. They are good. They've been able to beat Saskatchewan before, and they're getting guys back. They're going to be at home. A lot of things are just kind of going the direction where I feel like they're going to be able to win this game. Now, I do think Saskatchewan can go out there and beat them, but I don't exactly see this being one where it's going to be a blowout either way. This isn't going to be like what we saw, I think, last year where the Bombers ended up getting like a 50-burger on the Riders. Things should be better. And I'm hoping this one is just a grisly, brutal game where it's something like 20-17 and it comes down to the final play. So at the end of this, I just want to say apologize for kind of these quick rundowns, but for these games, I pick Montreal and then Winnipeg in a rematch of the Grey Cup, which will be very exciting. And in this one too, it's not crazy to imagine the top teams making it to the Grey Cup. Pretty common in the CFL to see those top seeds make it. But if we got to see a Toronto-Saskatchewan Grey Cup, that'd be kind of fun as well. But I really am hoping for a rematch between Montreal and Winnipeg, and if not, then maybe another classic between Montreal and Saskatchewan. So, what are your picks for today? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, and have a great night.